He's the new kid in town, and the music's on his side.
Let's dance!
Footloose. Paramount Pictures presents Footloose.
Welcome back to the VHS Club. We are laughing and having fun here behind the scenes because Val has watched this one tonight. We may have to bring her on and have her share her thoughts and feelings on this. I absolutely love it. Hi to Val and to Paul and George and Josh. And I'm missing someone. Cherie is here. We have the whole gang hanging out with us in the live studio audience. And if you're like, what's a live studio audience? That's what we affectionately call all of the amazing people who show up for our live recordings on Thursday nights. So you're missing out if you're not here. If you're not here to contribute to the fun.
Come and join us.
Exactly. Come and join us. Nat, we should give ourselves, hang on, a fake round of applause. Oh no, my sound effects are muted. One sec. There it is. A fake round of applause because this is the 40th anniversary of this movie. So we actually watched a movie in like a big anniversary time period. So we're doing it. We did. Yeah,
by accident.
We did by accident because as fans of this show will know, either me or Nat, mostly me, the second I watch a movie, like within the first 5 minutes of watching any old movie, I'm like, oh, now I want to watch these 7 other movies. Like I can't get through a movie that I'm enjoying without wanting to watch all of the other ones that either feature that actor or are in that genre. Am I alone? Are you like this? Okay, good.
I'm the same.
Good.
Katie starts watching this. She immediately texted me, now I really want to watch Girls Just Want to Have Fun with Sarah Jessica Parker. I'm like, obviously. That's already, like, mentally I'm already watching it, and I'm watching Footloose. Because let's just say Sarah Jessica Parker, like, and Kevin Bacon, in my opinion, kind of outshone most everybody in this movie. Mm-hmm. I thought, like, she's so charismatic in this, and she was just like the little side character. What was her name? Rusty.
It's a great name.
I love, and we'll get to it a bit later. But there's this one scene where they go dancing, and you see they have Ariel, the lead, played by Lori they
Lori.
show she's the main character and she's dancing with Kevin Bacon, and it's like clearly she's not like an actual dancer. Sarah Jessica Parker actually did a lot of dancing back then, because shortly after this, Girls Just Want to Have Fun comes out, which is all about dancing. And I'm like, they're really trying to hide her shine. Anyways, I love it.
Yeah.
This movie is about quickly about a small town whose charismatic church leader suffers a severe tragedy and decides to turn the whole town. He decides he needs to protect the whole town by banning things like radio, music, dancing, tape cassettes,
drinking,
80s, etc. Drinking, drugs, and all of this. It seems the only thing that they stop these teens from actually doing is dancing, because the kids are all doing the drugs and the drinking
and the sex.
They're
doing all the things. They're doing all the things.
Yeah. Fornicating. Yeah. And Kevin Bacon's character Ren, him and his mom move into this town seemingly with her brother or sister, the mother's brother or sister. And he's like, wow, this town is completely insane. What do you mean you don't listen? You're not, it's against the actual law to listen to music and dance. So I'm gonna bring back prom and save the town from its righteousness.
Yeah.
That's the plot?
Yeah, that's the plot. Because
it's actually against Christianity to celebrate and dance and have autonomy.
Well, they prove though in this movie that it is totally fine with, at least it's biblically sound, which kind of is sort of amusing. Into all this. I wanted, and I don't know if this is the case with you, Nat, but so we get like a very brief moment in this movie where Kevin Bacon is like clearly a some level of professional dancer, and B has like a gymnastics background. And I had so many questions about Ren's backstory. I was like, can we learn more about like why they've moved from Chicago, and like what happened to his gymnastics career? Why is his mother not fostering his gymnastics and dance career? He needed to be in Fame. Like they needed to move to New York City and enroll him in Fame, in not Fame, but in the school from Fame. I feel like it was a missed opportunity.
They were in Chicago. Like Chicago's a dance town. Like, so, why'd they leave? So we know that his father left them.
Yeah.
So and maybe, I suspect it's the 80s. So maybe she didn't have a job. Maybe because that was kind of the very tail end of the stay-at-home mom as a norm. So maybe she just needed a more affordable place to stay. So staying with family in the interim was kind of what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But also they kind of implied when they kicked him off of the high school gymnastics team at this new high school, which they did just because he's new, and the kids of the town are like, we're going to blame.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't. The kids of the town are like, oh, good, there's a scapegoat who's new in town, so all of the drugs and alcohol that we're doing, we'll just blame it on him. And poor Ren's like, there are no adults here adulting. Like, there's nobody here is like even willing to listen to me. I've never been a problem kid, which is said several times. Anyways, but it seems like he was like on a scholarship track with an actual gymnastics career, like you said. And they like just cut him the team, and his mom's just like silent at the dinner table while her like brother or brother-in-law is like preaching the Bible at him because like Ren got bullied, so let's just give him some Bible. Anyways,
she does. So confused. She does slightly. She does fight back a little bit, because they make this comment that like as all of this is happening, so as Ren is kind of joins this town and joins this school and is like clearly into dancing and is baffled by how crazy the entire town is. He definitely becomes the scapegoat for absolutely everything and is bullied and experiences all these things. But then they mention at home, they're staying with his aunt and uncle, who we don't know which one is necessarily related to his mom, but they mentioned that his mom has lost her job and that like the family that he's staying with is also having like repercussions of his quote unquote
They're
behavior.
also being bullied. Yeah.
They're also being bullied. But his mom like basically like sort of quietly is just like she seems like not fine with the fact that she's lost her job, but like she does sort of seem in some ways to be standing up for him at that particular point. So
at the end of the movie.
Yeah. But we should back up. So we should back up and we should say that this movie starts somewhat dramatically, right? Because like the intro scenes of this movie are like this like brimstone and fire level preacher in this like really intense church environment, and then it flashes like not forward, but it flashes to the pastor's daughter, who is like so like in the same way he's like this like very over the top stereotypical pastor in a small town, like super like, you know, hellfire and like controlling people with fear, like level of pastor. And then
puts on a show
as
opposed to literally preaching. But
almost like a TV pastor, right? But then his daughter is like a complete stereotype as well, where it's like, you know, the pastor's daughter is like wild, rebellious, like, you know, and right under his nose, and he's like aware of it but can't seem to stop it. And she's a lot. Like you were saying before we jumped on, like she needs a therapist. We're concerned for her. She's not okay.
We know that therapy wasn't really a big thing, especially in small towns. It still really isn't, but it's much more accessible now.
Yeah.
And so, but she's clearly suffering from many things, including at least severe depression, and mental and physical abuse. So this opening scene, her and her girlfriends after church on Sunday hop in their car to go to the drive-in or the drive-through diner. Where you go, you sit, you park, like the Orange Julep, you know, like which is a Montreal thing. It's you know, the drive-in where all the cars are and everybody hangs out. And she sees this guy from high school in his redneck truck, and well, they specify that he's
they all need to eat a lot of food. I'm with Val on this one.
Dumb. Oh yeah, I mean, they were, what was it in the 80s? It wasn't like, we call 90s toxic diet culture, but 80s was heroin chic, was it?
Yeah, or cocaine,
or no, coke. It was the white parties. It was the white chic. Anyways.
Very
these people were thin. Oh, like terrifyingly so. Fragile. Anyways, so the point is, they're in the cars, they start drag racing down this like country lane highway. So it's like a 2-lane highway in the middle of nowhere, where obviously there would be like kind of most of the traffic would be either local or long haul truckers. So she decides to hop from her friend's speeding car, because they are now drag racing with her kind of boyfriend, and crawl from one speeding car into the other speeding car. And then as she's doing that, she's straddling both cars, and there's a long haul trucker coming, like a semi coming right at him, and they're all gonna die. And they're like, wow, she's an asshole. It was a harrowing opening scene. I was like, I thought it was terrifying as a kid, but as an adult, I'm like, God, get her help.
Yeah, she
oh man,
she's dangerous and is a lot, and it like, and you almost like, I don't know, mean girl vibes. Like she's also like not nice at all to her friends. Like it takes like it, and this is me rewatching it. I don't remember how old I was when I originally watched it. I definitely know that I was in the Third Rock from the Sun era, because I remember thinking like, whoa, John Lithgow is not funny alien dad in this. And I'm like, I have thoughts about that. But I will say that like he's scary. And then he gets even more scary when he's on Dexter later. So like spoilers for that if you're a Dexter fan. But I
Spoilers,
definitely,
John Lithgow often plays a villain.
Yeah. He's very lovable on Third Rock from the Sun, though. But I will say that like it took me probably more than halfway through the movie before I even kind of remotely liked her as a character. Like I was just like, maybe Ren will end up with one of these other, like I know he doesn't, but I was like, maybe Ren will like Sarah Jessica Parker or one of these other characters, because she's not like I know that she's trying to be this like very kind of damaged and broken character, but she's not likable. And it does, like, even at that moment, like more than halfway through the movie, where she gives him the backstory that we all know is coming, that it was actually, she unveils that it was her brother and some of his friends that were killed in this like crazy situation that was in every adult's mind. It was caused by dancing and drinking and sin, all the sin of the town, right? But like even in that moment, she's super like, it's such a fast moment. Like they don't give a lot of backstory for it, and like how she talks about it, like you're just like, but you're saying that this was your brother, and like this damaged your family and the town so badly that you've now lived in this like basic like lockdown for years, and she's doing the exact same. Like I know that that's how trauma works, but I was just like, as a parent, I had a moment where I was just like, oh man, boarding school for you. Like I would have shipped you out to a therapist and then to somewhere else, like away from this town.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just, it was,
I have to say,
it was crazy.
Ren's gut feeling. So right at the beginning, she sees him. He's Kevin Bacon, super dreamy, dressed very Bowie, which I love. His mom is like, maybe dressing like David Bowie while you're here is not the best idea, and I love that reference. He's dressing like the Thin White Duke with the like skinny tie, and anyways, he looked good, Kevin Bacon. And so she sees him. She's obviously stunningly beautiful, tall, and gorgeous. She's the popular girl, the Heather or the Regina George of the school.
Oh, Heather.
And
yeah.
And, he's the new guy. He's mysterious. He's from the city. He dresses like all rock and roll. And, so obviously right away, the two pretty people are attracted to each other. That's how it goes. And yeah, it just, his gut instinct though seems, because she's like, well, are you going to kiss me? He's like, A, you have a boyfriend. B, you seem batshit crazy.
She's also
and
like,
C, maybe if things kind of even out.
she's also
he said that right at the beginning. I was like, gut instinct, Ren. She's
pretty dismissive and like actually straight up mean to him at the beginning. Like she is the reason that, she's the reason that he's so bullied and picked on right from the very beginning, is that like he's she was introduced to him at the very, very beginning of this movie by her father. So he's already like someone her father wants her to meet. So she's like, nope. And then, she's trying to be this kind of like cool, popular, wild child, and like, again, dealing with her trauma in all of the wrong ways. But she picks on him like from the very beginning. Yeah. And it's not really until he starts being like interesting. It's like on the other side of him kind of winning that like tractor chicken thing against her quasi boyfriend that she's like, oh, like maybe like he's the interesting kind of bad boy that I'll switch over to. Like she just wants to be with like whoever is the most dramatic and whoever will piss off her father the most. Like, so it's, but I feel like she's not even kind of nice. Like,
he also tells her, he's like, don't use me to get back at your dad. Yeah. I think he said that again more than once in the movie. I'm like, you go, Kevin Bacon, being an evolved human male.
Yeah.
He's the only one that had any reason in this movie.
Val's with me. She got my last piece.
Narcissistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, she comes across quite narcissistic. Though one thing that I find wild, when she goes to break up, and we can kind of boyfriend because she keeps saying kind of boyfriend, but let's face facts. When you're in high school and you're exclusively with one person, that's your boyfriend. So she like 80s style ghosted her boyfriend by just not returning his calls, which were on landlines. Which is a home phone, guys. It was a phone line for the whole family in one building. So So, she just wasn't returning his calls. She was ditching him at lunch, avoiding him at school, etc. And so finally she goes to meet him, and he's like, you're not dumping me, I'm dumping you. And she gets mad, so she slaps him, and then he punches her, and then she loses it, and she starts like breaking up his car with a lead pipe that she pulls out of the back of his car.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like smashing his windshield and smashing his taillights. So he beats the shit out of her. Like, not even just a little, but a lot. And she has like her arms are very obviously going to be severely bruised because he's punching her in the arms and the ribs. He punches her in the face a few times. And nobody in this town does anything about it.
Nope.
Nobody. And I was like, even if she's a narcissist, and even if she's dealing with all of this trauma, which she is, because her not only her parents who suffered a loss, she suffered a loss, and then her dad, who's this charismatic leader, turns the whole town on its head to become this very abnormal thing where the town is like, we're going to actually pass into local law that some of the most normal things, like the radio playing pop music, is evil and it's sinful. So it's like she's now in this very autonomous situation. And so even with all that, like, nobody does anything. Nobody is concerned that there is a male who just beat the shit out of a teenage female. I mean, I know they're both teenagers, but everybody's just like, it's just a little kooky. Like,
yeah.
Actually, they don't address it at all.
They don't address it at all. I mean, only
I mean,
Ren...
Kevin Bacon kind of does. Yeah. He does ask if she's okay, and he does get the details of what happens. So he checks on her mental health wise, and he does, and I love it, because usually men in these fictional situations run off to beat the guy up, which is just so ick. Like, instead of actually checking in with the person who was hurt, like, so he does the right thing. He does the good thing. He's kind, and, but again, like, where are the grown-ups? These are children. And I know they look 35, but like, these are high school kids. They're like 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
What? Nobody's concerned that she's like suddenly bought out the whole pharmacy's like makeup aisle.
She doesn't
cover this up.
She doesn't even cover it up all that well, because there's like a scene a little bit later that's like right before where Kevin Bacon's character goes to like the town hall, and she's like clearly got a black eye. Like, it's not covered up at all. Like, she's covered up like some stuff initially, but the whole town would know that. But I guess they're too distracted by everything. Josh points out a really good point. He says, in a town like that, that's close to admitting that the town has problems, they're not going to admit that they have problems because they're so perfect. And I think that is kind of the whole vibe of it. It's like, don't no one sees anything. I mean, no one says anything. It's sad.
Is that in the Bible?
And horrific. No. Yeah. I mean, obviously this is like, yeah. And Val's like, why did no one say anything about the beating? I know. No. Yeah. No one says anything about it, and it's kind of, even the movie itself sweeps it under the rug. So it was definitely like I mean, there's a lot of upsetting things about this movie, but it was an upsetting, intentionally upsetting moment in this movie. And Kathy's pointing out that also, we're going from fame to to Footloose, and Laurie Singer connects in as well. So there are a lot of kind of fame connections. Again, this is like one after another
Laurie
kind of dance movies. Yeah. She was on the Fame TV show.
Okay, so the fun bits of the movie, because there are a lot of fun bits. And when I was watching it, like, some of the stuff was just cringe, because it's also kind of topical nowadays in a different way that doesn't really apply to the film watching in historical context. But
yeah, it's a little culty, as you were saying
earlier. The fun bits
earlier.
are the dancings.
It's got some cult vibes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's representation of a cult, but but then not by representation. I mean, like literally follows the handbook of like this is all cult behavior.
Yeah.
But anyways, that aside, we love the kids sneak off to go to like a club or a bar,
Mhm.
like the next town over to go dancing, and they go
Yeah.
line dancing and stuff, which I adore. So Willard, Ren's best friend, doesn't know how to dance, so he just like gets drunk, and he's supposed to be there with Rusty, which is Sarah Jessica Parker. And she's just so cute. She's like bouncing out of her seat. She's so excited about dancing, and he's just like, my foot hurts. And she's like, that is the stupidest thing. And then finally, where I'm like screaming at the screen, like, just go and dance by yourself, girl. And she does it. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And of
She's
course,
adorable.
Ren being kind, he's so kind. He like includes her in dancing with Ariel. Like, so he's also dancing with her, which is super, super nice. And when he like does this thing where he flips Rusty over his back and they do that whole like, woo, I was like, that's pretty hot.
Mhm.
It's so good. He like twirls her over his back and then like spins her right into another dance partner. Like he's got her covered. You know?
Yeah, that part is
I do like
adorable.
that scene a lot.
I do love that, like, in a so again, like, cue the like 90s movie background guy, but he's like, in a town with no dancing, how is it that no one knows that the kids obviously don't know how to dance? Like, it's like Ren's like, allow me to take you a town over so that we can do dancing. And it was like, oh my goodness, Willard, you don't know how to dance? I was like, why would he know how to dance? There's no dancing allowed in this town. Like, you just,
Most of their lives.
yeah, it was that part was
been
pretty great.
outlawed about half their life. Like
Yeah.
that's funny.
Yeah. So
Um,
I did love that part, but apparently that whole like Willard not knowing how to dance and Ren teaching him how to dance, that actually came because the actor that plays Willard did not know how to dance, but they for whatever reason were like desperate to have him in the movie. So they're like, let's just add in that Kevin Bacon will teach him how to dance.
I think
And so,
the guy was actually just a local kid from where they filmed it. So they filmed it in a real high school.
they did film it in a real high school. They actually sent
In-
Kevin Bacon back to high school, like pretending like it was like never been kissed. Throwback to that one. They like had Kevin Bacon pretend to be a high school student at that high school in Utah, and he lasted, I think it was like 2 hours before he was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore, which I think is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So he was, I think, local, and so kind of just picked him up and were like, we'll teach you how to dance. And apparently a lot of the kids in it were just like locally sourced.
A lot of them are local. Yeah. My favorite thing surrounding this movie, and I'll drop this into the description in the show notes later so that you can all watch this, but the school, which I'm going to forget the name of the school, but the school that this movie was filmed at is an actual school, as Nat said, and it's actually this year, 2024, is their last school year. So the school building is finally, they're building a new building, or they have a new building, and so they've been all year petitioning and like creating all kinds of crazy content to try to get Kevin Bacon to come to their prom that is a Footloose themed prom. And they have like his locker with like pictures all in it, and they have like photos of Footloose all over the walls. It is by far like one of the cutest things ever. So I was watching this video, and at the very end, Kevin Bacon comes in and it's just like, okay, I'll come to your prom. I'm like, yay.
That's so sweet.
Yay, tiny town that is now dancing. It was it was a Footloose and Footloose moment. The Tater Tots are pointing out that I do think that you're right in that most of the actors, or not most, but a lot of the actors in the school were local. But the one you're thinking of in particular is actually Sean Penn's brother. So Chris Penn.
You'll see it in the interview about the school. He said, "I'm local," and they had to. They brought me in, so maybe that's where the Penns were from. With a small town.
I think you're just confusing it with a different actor. The guy that was dancing with him at the end was a local guy, but Chris Penn was not.
Willard?
Yeah.
I thought Willard. Anyways, I thought it was
yeah.
Willard in the interview. Anyways, that was my mistake.
Oh,
But
it's sad that
anyways,
he passed away. That's really sad. This is the depressing thing about doing an older podcast. I feel like
so many people
you're
are.
always stuck in it. Yes, apparently he passed away in 2006. And Paul is pointing out the scenes where he had to learn how to dance were added to the script because he couldn't at all dance. So they had to teach him in terms of what he already knew, wrestling.
And to be honest, so classic 80s movie, there has to be a montage. So it's,
At least one. Yeah.
A great song, that's like one of the star songs of the film or of the soundtrack. And it's clips usually of people like fixing something while dancing, cleaning something while dancing, saving something while dancing. It's always. So in this movie, in Footloose, it's Ren and Willard dancing and Ren teaching Willard how to dance. And it's my favorite part of the movie is their little montage of their their best friend moment and teaching him how to dance. And he gets his little nieces to help. And,
so
it's
cute.
so cute.
Yeah, that part's pretty awesome.
Scene on the bleachers.
Yep.
And anyway, it's super cute. Like that's my favorite part of the movie is this montage.
Yeah, that montage is great. The other one that is like iconic from this movie is Kevin Bacon's like frustrated, annoyed, like burning off his anger dance scene with a boombox at his place of work, like in the evening that Ariel ends up watching, and kind of they have this moment as a result of it afterwards. But I immediately like looked up at the end of that scene. I was like, does Kevin Bacon really, like, is he like the level of dancer that I hope and believe him to be after watching this movie? And sadly, he is not. He's gotten a pretty long way, but he was actually pretty cheesed off that he had like a dance double. Like the idea of having of which both he and Willard's character like both had dance doubles because they're
but the dancing was pretty
next level. So it is pretty amazing that
I'm like, other than Sarah Jessica Parker, I don't think any of the actors were dance people.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She was in it. I read an article that her dance experience prior to this was actually a production of Annie. So she was still pretty junior at this point. This is like continues on to kind of a career, obviously, in across a ton of different arts programs. But I did want to capture this fact that Paul was reminding me of earlier. So Diane Wiest and John Lithgow, who are Ariel's parents in this movie, they were actually only 9 and 12 years older than Laurie Singer, who plays their daughter, which is like hilarious and ridiculous, but is also so very common. Like they just, whatever Hollywood reason, teenagers are never played by teenagers, which I mean, I guess makes sense. If it was actually teenagers, like they wouldn't look like this. Like there's no way that they would be this. I don't know.
I mean, if John Lithgow did look older than her mother, Diane Wiest, looked about her age.
Yeah.
And if this was some creepy cult town, that could be perfectly normal, right? Like, don't these cults like marry child brides? Like, is it super weird? Maybe it was just really on point.
Yeah, maybe it was just really on point. I feel like I'm gonna take it in a different place so we don't get in trouble with any crazy cults coming after us. But I will say, like, did we lose that a little bit? Like, so I've been rewatching the High School Musical movies with my 9-year-old because of all of the obvious reasons, and my kids are super into musicals, so they're really fun. But like those,
and then you need to watch High School Musical, the musical, the show.
Incredible, obviously. But like Zac Efron and Vanessa Hudgens, like they look like teenagers in that. They're like a little bit older than teenagers, but they were basically teenagers making that. They look like teenagers. It's like I feel like in the 80s and like early 90s, like high school was like gritty. Like my high school was probably like in between that, probably a little bit closer to High School Musical experience. But I was like, it was like real gritty. And not to say that like high school doesn't have these issues, but like maybe that's why the actors like looked older. They were just like, we need to really represent this correctly.
But if you put it into context, so Katie and I went to rival high schools, okay? Mm-hmm. They were more rivals in the 70s and 80s than our time, which was the early 90s, but whatever. But they were known to have like actual gang fights, which in the suburbs, but
Yeah.
No, but really,
suburb
like,
fights, yeah.
like both of our schools in the 80s had metal
Mhm.
detectors to look for knives because there was a lot of like gang fare between the two schools. And to really make it super 80s, it was like the Protty school versus the Catholic school.
That
Like, it
that
was
only
so very
exists in
that.
Montreal. Shout this out if this existed in your place. I've lived in
Or
a lot
Europe.
of I've lived in a
The
lot of
all of
places.
UK.
I guess all of the UK. I've lived in a lot of places, and most people, when I say that, are like shocked and horrified. Where I was like, the schools were split by religion, and they were like, what? And that's in the
When
U.S. where we have religion problems here. But
let's
yeah,
let's rewind a few years to when we were in Scotland, and our friend's husband was like, "You went to the Proddy bar," and he's like, "That's dangerous," and we're like, "What?" Like,
sharks and
oh,
jets.
it's
Yeah,
still real. It's
no,
still real. Like,
it's
no,
very
the
real.
religion thing is less real in North America now. That kind of died out in the 80s.
Yeah.
But it used to be a thing, and it still is a thing in certain parts of Europe. So,
Mm.
anyways, it's definitely not a thing here anymore. But yeah, so like I can see that the schools were like in the 80s more rough and tumble than they are now. They were grittier than they are now.
Yeah.
I like
I
well,
just always marvel
maybe not now, but in our time, like
I just
when we
always
were kids.
marvel at like, and this is, I mean, certainly this was true in Fame as well, but like almost every movie we've done to date that has had like a high school scene, high school is like everyone like looks much older than what the high school experience was for me, and the like everything is much more intense, which I mean, I guess as part of it is just like the
That's Hollywood.
of the school of it all. Like they're trying also to like shine light on issues that teenagers go through, which I think absolutely occurs. But I feel
Yeah.
like it's a lot more. I don't know. Maybe it just happens less at some schools, or it's just like more hidden, I guess, than obvious. But it is.
Also, I mean, like this is a movie, and they want it to be
Yeah.
rather dramatic,
Yeah.
right? Like it's
This
not
one's light,
necessarily
by the way, too.
representation.
Like this one. I mean, part of it is because it's like it's musical esque, dance more
Yeah.
than musical. But I really think they could have gone a lot deeper in it. Like it seemed
Yeah.
weird to me even rewatching it, and I actually really enjoyed watching it the second time around. And this is probably only the second or third time I've seen this. This is one I have not seen a ton. But what I did find surprising about it is that like, and I know this is based on a true story, so maybe it's because it's based on a true story. But I was like, it feels to me like if a church leader and a church in this tiny town where they have a lot of control, like has something horrible like this happen to them, like it doesn't, I guess it would have been more believable to me if what happened was the pastor's daughter got raped and had an illegitimate child at like as a result of a school dance or a dance, like, or she went to like blah 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 somewhere and dancing led to sex, which led to this horrible ramification, and maybe she like died in childbirth or some kind of like very dramatic sexual crime. Like that would have made sense to me for the like no more dancing. But like,
Yeah, because the whole thing was dancing leads to fornication.
because
Was
the
like
whole thing was
the
dancing.
topic.
Yeah, the whole thing was like dancing
Yeah.
leads to fornication. Like that was the whole plot. But then the thing that they were traumatized by was like driving and alcohol. And I was like, well, if it was driving and alcohol, that has nothing to do with dancing. Like it felt like two different storylines that like didn't quite like connect. Like which I like, I
Either
get.
way, before, during, and after the tragedy, like,
Yeah.
this town clearly has a problem with underage drinking.
Yeah.
And I love that the town is like, we're going to turn into a cult to fix the problem, and not at all realize that it's still a huge problem.
Yeah.
Because in
Very
almost
funny
every
thing.
scene that the teens are in, the kids are doing drugs, drinking, fornicating.
Yeah.
Like,
Smoking, doing like all the
and
other
it's like the
all the other
principal's like, let's
vices.
burn all these books. And it's like, that's not gonna solve the problem, honey bunny. Like, you also ban the radio and you arrest people when they come back in from out of town because they might have done something when they went out of town that you don't like. It's pretty crazy. that it's like they do all of this and still didn't even come close to touching the actual problem.
Yeah, I'm like, because there are still again, in 2024, there are still dry towns in both Canada and in the US, and I'm sure probably in other places. So like that would have again made sense to me. Like there was this horrible car accident. It was clearly involved because people like were heavily drinking and you know, and they were like being like quote unquote wild children. So like I would get them being like,
Gotta go dancing.
dry town. I just don't get dancing. I'm sorry, Val. I went way too in for you. Be shocked and appalled with me. But I just didn't. I don't know. It wasn't like not to sell short what happened to her brother, but I feel like they didn't give enough detail into the backstory of that at all. Like, and
Well, they missed the mark.
they missed the mark for, and it didn't make sense to me. Like, again, I don't know. It worked. Like, I still enjoyed the movie, but there was like, I feel like it was building to this moment of like, but why though? The town. And then when they revealed why, I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense.
Can we talk about one thing that really irked me in this movie?
Go for it.
So at the beginning, when they, you know, survive Ariel's suicide / mass murder attempt, they get to the drive-in, and she's just like, "Hey, all friends who are super pissed at me for almost killing everybody, including myself and all of you, can you just like buy me some fries?" And they're all like, "Bitch, please no." So to sort of lighten the mood, she pulls out a boombox. It's in an illegal tape cassette, an illegal radio recording.
Yeah.
and everybody's dancing. Now, this is a small boombox, okay? Not like a huge ghetto blaster. I'm like an average size boombox. And she puts a tape, and it's battery powered. So if you can remember that, those batteries wore out real fast, and they were like the big round battery,
Jeez.
right?
Yeah.
You'd go through the Kleenex. And so she puts on this tape cut, and everybody in and around the whole vicinity of this diner is dancing. Okay? Not just the kids in the parking lot near the boombox. In the parking lot all the way around the diner. Everybody in the diner, everybody at the arcade in the diner, the people in the kitchen of the diner, the people in the bathroom at the diner are all dancing to this music playing from the little boombox. Like they can all hear it. What is happening? I was like, guys, even a very, very cute like scene, because everybody's just like, they're just standing there and chatting, and nobody can help but dance because it's a good song and everybody's dancing. But I'm like, guys, like definitely the kid playing at the arcade game did not hear the music.
Yeah.
The guy like flipping the burgers did not hear the music. But anyways, it was adorable. I like that scene a lot.
It was adorable.
And yes,
Ridiculous.
boomboxes are fierce.
Boomboxes are fierce. That one was intensely fierce. Val needs one like that where everyone can hear. They are, and boomboxes are definitely trying to make a comeback, which I'm all for. I bring back the boomboxes. I think that'd be fantastic. I did love that scene. We should talk before the hour gets away from us about how absolutely incredible Ariel's mother is. She's my favorite character in this entire movie because she's just kind of like quiet and barely there, and she like they've like purposely made her look like pretty frumpy throughout this movie. Like she's just like the, you know, background pastor's wife that's like ignored and overlooked and just is doing like her duty. But then like more than halfway through, she's just like, nah, you know, like you've done this to yourself, and the two of you need to sort this out. Like you and your daughter need to sort this out, and you need to just like step off for a sec, because like music didn't exist back and we were still in love with each other, and like we were doing bad things. Like, and I'm like, I like this lady. I'm in for being friends with this lady.
I love my favorite part is they're in bed, they're getting ready for bed.
Yeah.
And he's going on about the church, like I was going to say the church committee, the
town
which
hall,
I guess
town
the church
committee?
committee and the town committee were the same.
Pretty much.
The town council, obviously run by the church, but they're getting together to vote because Ren is going to go to speak to them to try and endear them to the fact to allow the kid to have prom. And he even, with Ariel's help, has Bible passages to show that dancing is a form of celebration, and it's a way to, like, singing and dancing has always been used as a way to celebrate
Yeah, God approves.
God and harvest
Yeah.
and good fortune and all of these things, right?
Mm.
So she's like, "So what are you guys going to do about the town council meeting tomorrow?" He's like, "Oh, we already decided we're not doing the dance." And she just laughs at him. She flat out laughed in his face, and I was like, "You go, Mom." And she's like, "That's ridiculous."
Yeah.
She's like, "You're an idiot." And he's like, "Well, we're losing our daughter." She's like, "You already lost her, honey."
Yeah.
Which is so funny.
I love that she's also
And
like
it's funny, they put
not
that little,
involving herself in it. Like she's like, you did this. You need to solve it. Like it, like
You
she's just
messed
like
up the whole
removed.
town.
Yeah. She's like, I'm just pointing this out.
Yeah.
Like you need to fix this, which is amazing.
And she does it in that sort of creepy, I don't want to say church voice, but that creepy voice that, like that creepy sing-songy voice that men kind of demand women have in certain environments and circumstances.
Yeah.
And she just like still with that little voice, she's just like,
Yep.
the
She's
problem's
amazing.
you.
Yeah. The problem is you.
Created the problem.
Yeah. Kathy
Yeah,
is right. She
Diane
leaves
Wade's
such a
amazing.
big impact. Like she's a small character in this movie, but yeah, she definitely had the best moments out of like she's just amazing in this entire thing. And I do love Kathy also points out that they were dancing in the sheets, you know, so there's like it's there's some craziness going on in this movie. Yeah, it's your bed, now dance in it.
One other thing that got me, and I was just like, that's incredible, but also must have been a nightmare. So at the very end, there's the misogynistic ex-boyfriend wants to go ruin the prom because he's younger. So he's like, I guess, a year or so younger than them. So he's not invited to senior prom because Ariel does mention.
Does she mention
She does mention,
or that he just
yeah,
didn't
she's
want to
like,
go?
"What are you?" I think no, because she mentions, "What are you going to do? You're still in high school next year. I'm going to be gone because I'm leaving town as soon as I'm out." You know?
Okay.
So, anyways, which finally they're allowed to do, and they get in a huge like brawl, which I love. I love this sort of 80s trope of Kevin Bacon, Ren being the city boy, so he has all these like kung fu moves, which ends the fight pretty quickly.
Gymnastics,
which I'm
moves.
like, okay, Karate Kid,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Like a flying crane move, but whatever. So ends the fight, and then there's that sort of quiet after the storm of the fight, and Kevin Bacon, it goes like from intense fight scene to extremely quiet, hard cut into, isn't this a party? Who's ready to dance? And he's like screaming, and then glitter. There's so much glitter.
So much glitter.
Like all the glitter raining down from God knows where, the whole dance sequence. So they have this huge...
I don't remember it being that glittery. Maybe it's like the enhanced, updated version I watched, but I was like, wow, that's a lot of glitter. There's so much glitter.
Non-stop glitter. I'm like, these poor actors, dancers, extras, are like Brillo padding that glitter off of them for the next like 10 years of their life.
Yep.
I did the Pat McGrath red glitter lip for New Year's once, and I'm still finding red glitter. And I think it was like 2016 or 2017 when I did that. Whenever it was Pat McGrath came out, she just comes out with these crazy famous viral makeup trends, and she came up with the glitter lip, the perfect red glitter lip. And I'm still finding red glitter everywhere, guys, everywhere.
Yeah, I love the look.
Been like,
I have to admit, like watching it, I was like, I would like to go to that prom, and then I was like, but I don't.
Oh God,
I wouldn't want to get it. Like, yeah, Val says they're still wiping glitter off 40 years later, and they are still finding glitter. Paul's pointing something out. I did not notice this. So Paul is saying, did you notice that when the preacher and his wife Diane and John watched the prom from afar, when they kissed, they never really kissed?
Oh no, I didn't notice.
I didn't notice.
Cool.
I let Scarlett watch the last like 10 minutes of this movie, mostly just so she could see the dancing because she's like super into dancing. But she watched that point and she was like, she again had not watched the majority of the movie. So she came in and she was like, "Oh, the old couple are hugging. They should be dancing." I was like, they should be dancing. They should be. They do. Yeah. They kind of just like stand there and like awkwardly hug and like, but not really dance. Like I was sort of hoping.
Sway.
I was sort of hoping.
Look, we're almost dancing.
Yeah. I kind of in that moment at like in my Katie edit. So I would definitely would have wanted them to like come out and for the wife to like remind him of how like clearly they were young and fun and in love and danced. Like, so it would have been, I think it would have been more impactful if they had not like just stood out in that field and like fully danced, like without any music, kind of like just really kind of let themselves footloose. I wanted them to be footloose and fancy free. But yeah, it was a missed opportunity, I think, on that one.
Yeah, so all in all, I love the dance thing. The soundtrack is incredible. Kevin Bacon and Sarah Jessica Parker and Diane Weiss like smash it out of the park. John Lithgow too. He does he's fantastic. I was telling Katie, it's a very Chevy Chase Fletch kind of moment with his evangelical like
intensity.
You're all going to hell and but like his preaching intensity, which I also loved when Ariel's like, oh, she's watching her dad prepare his sermon. She's like, she kind of sees behind the curtain, you know, she sees Oz behind the curtain kind of thing, like the great and powerful. She's like, it's just a show. And he flat out tells her like, well, yeah, if you put on a big show and terrify the shit out of people, that's how you get them to listen. It's like, that's so dark.
Yeah.
I mean, did they intend the movie to be as dark as it actually was?
No, and it's funny. We were talking about this beforehand. I mean, I say no. I don't think so. I very much this time around knew what the storyline was. I remembered it enough to like remember. I feel like it was. I guess what I should say is I feel like the first time I watched it, it felt darker to me than this time. This time that I watched it, I was much more, because I was expecting and remembering the worst of particularly her father. I actually found him to be much more, not likable, but like I saw more of like his redemption arc than I think I did the first time I watched it. Maybe because I was looking for it more, or maybe because now I'm older and a parent myself. I just was like, oh, okay. If I'm to believe that like, because he has moments where like they're trying to make him redeemable, right? Like there's moments where the book burning, like the guy who wants to burn all the books and the pastor is like, no, don't do that. Like that's not for us to decide. That's crazy. Yeah. And then he does it anyway. And the pastor stops it and is like, you need to stop. And like, and even at the very end where he basically
figures out his first emotion.
Yeah. He figures things out. He clearly loves his daughter. And like, so you see that and his moment with Ren where he's like, oh, this is a good guy. But then he also can't fully back out from like the decision that's already been made. So he goes and like, so he allows, like he supports his daughter in the way that he's able to support his daughter in the moment. I feel like it was a little bit less intense for me this time around, from looking at it from a different lens. I totally agree with you. Like these are dark times in the world and particularly in the country that I'm living in. So I could not look at it from that lens or I would be really upset about everything. But I looked at it very much from like in the 80s. And this movie was also based on this is based on a true story, which again, like we'll post in the show notes afterwards if you're interested. But it was a story from like the late 1800s. Something happened in this town, which I don't give a ton of details about, and they banned dancing and who knows what else. And basically the high school revolted against it. And then the late 70s, they were able to overturn it. Yeah. So it went from like basically almost 100 years like of no dancing in this town.
I think it was like 1898 to 1979 that dancing was banned. And
so it like, I just like, there are dry towns. There are these small towns where there are these very small rural communities where they are like, it is very central to like, a small, like and sorry if you live in a small, I live in a small town, so I will say this with a the small town vibe, but there is like small town thinking and levels of control and people who like are just clutching and holding on to control amidst everything else. And it's, I don't know. It came across as less dark to me than the first time that I watched it. So I again, maybe it's just a different perspective, but it is the dark.
I think what I was
weirdly, it's darker than Dirty Dancing, which we'll get to in the next couple weeks here. But yeah, I
think what I this time around watching it, and I think I told Katie the last time I watched it was probably with Katie.
Yeah,
like
I think I was a teenager. I feel like I was like 13 or 14, like a young teenager,
and that's probably the last time we watched it, and it was probably together.
Yeah.
I think what the things that bothered me about watching this when I was a kid and when I was a teenager, I didn't quite have a grasp on. I didn't understand them as much. And it wasn't that Laurie was dealing with trauma and abuse. And it wasn't that, like, I just didn't understand what it was to take away people's rights as a kid. And now watching it, I was like, oh, now I understand what the ick was when I was little. It's just, this is like, you're infringing on people's human rights and autonomy, and that's crazy. And I know it happens all the time, but so it was interesting watching it, because I'm like, it is the 80s and it's dancing and it's Kevin Bacon, but also it's kind of real creepy. Anyways, it was an interesting rewatch. It definitely put us through it.
It was an interesting rewatch. We're seeing some votes coming in. So Kathy has 3 potatoes and 2 dancing Kevin Bacons. Paul gives it 3 Kevin Bacons and a sneaker. This one was hard. This one was hard to rate. I think prior to like the pre-show chatting with Nat, I had it as 4 because it's iconic and nostalgic, but mostly for Kevin Bacon and the dancing, and less for the actual storyline of the movie. Like for me, the main characters of this movie are the song and the dancing. Like, whereas when I think of Fame, the main character for me is probably the song, but then it's the individual stories. Like that carries itself through. And then if I think about Dirty Dancing, which again, we haven't got to yet, but like I feel like the characters and the dancing are bigger than the song for me in that one. So like it is interesting, I think, with all the different kinds of levels of this movie. So I ended up kind of revisiting my vote. So I went to 3. Nat was going to give it 2.
I was like, solid cult shit has got me bent.
Yeah, Nat's very...
Like a kid.
Nat is triggered and traumatized by this movie. Yeah, and Josh says, remember when Coming from a Small Town was nostalgic and a good thing?
I just don't like that. Yeah, I just don't like that because you're from a small town, you can get away with this kind of rhetoric and just say, well, small towns and we all protect each other. I'm like, no, that's manipulative, and everybody's a human being. But I do love the dancing. I do love the soundtrack. I love the stinking little boombox that could be heard to the next town.
The boombox gets 5 potatoes. Val says she just needed them to have a good meal, or 3.
Yeah.
George gives it 3 feet.
Oh gosh.
Kathy's in 4 Kevin Bacons.
Yeah.
3 taters from Val.
Yeah, I think 3 is a solid. I think 3 is a solid rating.
Yeah, I think that's a solid rating. I am happy this movie exists. I love that 100%. It made Kevin Bacon, the way that we all kind of see him and believe in him and vote for him and root for him now. I love that this high school is so, like, kids who have no idea what the hell this movie is are like learning the dance moves so that Kevin Bacon will come to their school. I think that's just like so heartwarming and wonderful. I just love a dance movie. I'm in my dance movie era on this show right now. So I
love this kind of got Sarah. I'm pretty sure this role was at least in part to play Sarah Jessica Parker getting the lead in Girls Just Want to Have Fun, which
that one is fantastic. Yeah.
That is a good dance movie, guys, if you haven't seen it. And I will never forget, like, a quote on the VHS box of this movie that I have in my basement is, if there were Oscars for teen movies, this would get all of them. That was like a Siskel and Ebert, like, Oh my gosh. That's a good movie. We'll have to add that.
I might have to go into our run. Well, but Josh watched, so we should remind everyone of the schedule. I'm gonna put up a schedule, you guys, because we can do that. Yeah. So because Josh watched, and I won't back up to his comment. It'll take me too long. But Josh watched Flashdance, which is the next one in our series, because you all decided as a group last week that we should watch them in the Footloose, Flashdance, Dirty Dancing order, because it sounded like most of us thought Dirty Dancing was the best. That's the vibe I got from that discussion. So yeah. we're on trend, onward and upward into Flashdance next, which, as you might remember from Fame, many people thought that Flashdance started leg warmers, and that is not true. It was Fame that started leg warmers.
For sure.
And yeah, now we have it. I'm with Val.
Is a wild, Flashdance is a wild plot of like,
yeah, speaking
welder
of plots,
by day,
yeah.
Female welder by day, stripper by night, but not stripping, just burlesque. I guess it can be categorized as burlesque.
I think it's burlesque. The crazy thing I will say,
they don't actually really, not all of them strip. They don't take off too much clothes.
They don't really strip. I do remember
the dancing's great. It's
I
ridiculous.
did not sneak peek for next week's episode to get you excited. I don't think I did. I definitely did not watch Flashdance until I was at least 17 or 18, because I watched it for the first time with you, Nat, and Dane. And that was like the joke behind it. It was like, well, I never watched this because it's about strippers, and like I'm way too like follow the rules person, and my parents would be really appalled by that, so I didn't watch it. And then we watched it and I was like, this has nothing to do with strippers. This is not a stripper movie. I've seen a lot of movies that are not this, that are about strippers, and this is not it. But yeah, it was, yeah, so it's a fun rewatch. And that one, I don't know, it's all kind. The story is not good, I will say that, but I do really enjoy the movie.
But the dancing and the music.
There would have been no burlesque without Flashdance. I'm with you, Kathy. It was like, it is a great one, and again, it's a great one for the soundtrack itself, as Val is saying. Kathy's voting Fame for her favorite. All right, well, we might have to. So I'm thinking for schedule. So next week, Flashdance, and then we will do Dirty Dancing, and then we'll do Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and then we can decide which of the 5 ones is everyone's favorite, and then we'll know deep down who everyone is as a person.
There's a lot of dance movies.
There are.
From the 80s.
But we can't stay in dance movies for forever, so this might be the end of our run with dance movies for a bit anyway. We got to get to Ruthless People.
I'm trying to think. There was one where Lorraine Bracco was a high school teacher in... It's very Michelle Pfeiffer, Dangerous Minds, but in the 80s. So there was more dancing. Okay. She's like at like an underprivileged school, and she's a teacher that cares, and they all dance, and I don't remember what it's called. So if anybody remembers, it's crazy, and it's like supposed to be this like really dangerous school in like the ghetto of whichever city, and and they break out into dance. It's wonderful and crazy. Lorraine Bracco. I'll have to look it up. I'll find out for you guys next week.
Look it up. Add it to our list. I did do some fun research. Paul knows that we love research here on this show. Paul loves to help us with it, but I did look it up, and I think it was something like we have 100 and we have just short of 200 movies currently on our must-watch movie list. So we're
watch list.
Good for 200 episodes. Don't worry about it. But I did look that up in comparison to how many movies were released in between 1990 and 1999. So in the 90s. And can anyone guess how many movies were released in the 90s? You can round it up or down if you want, Nat. Yeah. Go for it. What do you think?
Wasn't it like 19,000?
Nope.
19,000 movies?
Nope. 43,000 movies just in the 90s, according to IMDb. So according to IMDb...
it's like near 20,000 movies, right? No.
Yeah, no.
Like 40,000 movies. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, over 40,000
Double
movies.
what I
but we
thought.
only
That's
have
crazy.
like 179 on our list right now. So there's opportunity, really to grow our list a lot bigger. But
we need to add more.
Yeah, but we need to be like, we need to be curating.
Sing. Yes. See? Sing. I love it. Which
Kathy
so the
for the
reason I
win.
wasn't sure it was called Sing, Kathy for the win. Oh my god.
Mhm.
Is because there's a movie that came out a couple years back, maybe 10ish, called Sing Sing, which takes place in the 80s.
Mm.
Also great. It's like this new about early new wave music days in the UK, and this cool kid that decides to create this epic new wave band. Also great soundtrack and singing and dancing. But yeah, Sing. That was. I don't know if it was a good movie, but I know I enjoyed it. Love it.
Well, Paul says we're gonna have to do 3 movies a day, and Val has seen at least 3 of those. 43,000. So we're in. We're ready. We're ready to take on the world. Well, thanks everyone for hanging out for our Footloose episode. It's very timely because Footloose just celebrated its 40th anniversary in February of this year. Kevin Bacon's going to be at this amazing school in Utah, so we can do a follow-up episode. No, just kidding. We won't do a follow-up episode, but yeah, I think this has been a fun round of it. So we should say, because I'm really bad at ending this show, we should say that you can go back to our amazing website, the VHSclubpod.com, and on that website you will find our adorable new merch, all of our episodes and fun little short yeah, look at us, we're merched up today. I have the glass. I have to send Natalie the glass, the wine glass. But yeah, you'll find all of our adorable merch. You can leave a voicemail. You can leave us a review, which would really go a long way. I know many of you here that are hanging out with us, no review yet. And Natalie and I cry into our potatoes every night knowing that there's no just kidding. I think there's one review. I should find out who that person is and send them a t-shirt because that was really sweet of them. But if you want to leave us a review, we'd appreciate it. And let people know about the show. And we've been hanging out on a couple of our friend shows lately. So if you have a show and you want us to come on, yeah, we'll come on and answer movie questions. We can't do anything that doesn't relate to movies. We'll be very confused, but
And if you'd like to come on our show, just send us an email or leave us a voicemail on the website, and or hit us up on the Instagram. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, until next week, where we will all be flash dancing and not stripping. And that's what next week is going to be about for us.
Great sign up. Where we be stripping.
Yeah.
We're going to get banned on YouTube.
Homework. We are not stripping. There's no stripping on this podcast. This video podcast is all about dancing, welding, not stripping. That's like flash dance. We are not into that. Oh my gosh. Well, thanks for hanging out, everyone, for making our live studio audience so insanely fun, and for all the great movie recommendations. Keep them coming. Once we get out of our dance vibe and Nat gets to finally watch Ruthless People, we will take recommendations again. And yes, Kathy, let us know. We would love to come on your show. I think that you are both much smarter about movies than we are, but we're happy to fill in obnoxious, nervous laughter and personal deep thoughts as Canadians. That's where we
we talk about emotional responses to movies made when we were children. So
we're there.
If you would like an emotional response to a movie, have us on your show or come on our show.
Oh my gosh. Well, thanks to everyone. Have fun watching Discovery, Josh, and we will see you all on the other side. Bye, everyone.